The rain had just stopped when Daniel stepped out of the glass tower that housed his company's headquarters. He loosened his tie and took a deep breath, trying to shake off the suffocating feeling that had been building up inside him all day. The board meeting had been brutal. His chief financial officer, the man he had trusted for 12 years, had been stealing from the company. Millions of dollars gone. And the worst part? Everyone had loved him. Everyone had trusted him. Daniel was 41 years old and had built his tech company from nothing. He had started in a garage, just like all those stories you hear about. But unlike those stories, success hadn't made him happy. It had made him suspicious, paranoid even. And today's discovery had confirmed his worst fears about people. Give them an opportunity and they'll take advantage of you. Give them trust and they'll betray you. That's just how the world works, right? He started walking with no particular destination in mind. His driver was waiting in the parking garage, but Daniel didn't want to go home to his empty penthouse. He didn't want to sit in traffic in the back of a luxury car, staring at his phone, pretending everything was fine. He just wanted to walk and think. The downtown streets were busy with the usual Friday evening crowd, people rushing to catch buses, others heading to happy hour at overpriced bars, street vendors packing up their carts. Daniel walked past all of them, invisible despite his expensive suit. That was one thing he appreciated about big cities. You could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars and still be just another face in the crowd. He turned a corner and found himself on a quieter street, away from the main rush. That's when he saw her. A young woman, maybe 19 or 20 years old, sitting on a flattened cardboard box near a bus stop. She wasn't doing what most homeless people did. She wasn't holding out a cup or calling out to passers-by. She wasn't even looking at people. Instead, she had a book open on her lap and was completely absorbed in it. Daniel slowed down, curious despite himself. As he got closer, he could see the book was worn and had library markings on the spine. The girl's clothes were clean, but clearly old and didn't fit quite right. Her shoes had holes in them, patched up with duct tape. But what really caught his attention was the cardboard sign propped up next to her. Most signs said things like hungry, please help, or God bless. Hers was different. In neat handwriting it read, homeless but not hopeless, will work for opportunity. Something about that sign stopped Daniel in his tracks. Will work for opportunity, not money, not food, opportunity. He stood there for a moment studying her. She still hadn't noticed him. She was completely lost in whatever she was reading, her finger tracing the lines, lips moving slightly as if memorizing something important. An idea started forming in Daniel's mind. A dark idea, maybe. A cynical one, definitely. But he couldn't shake it. He wanted to test something. After what happened today, after discovering that someone he trusted had been robbing him blind, he needed to know. Are there actually good people out there? Or is everyone just waiting for their chance to take what they can get? He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. Inside was a card he rarely used. A Black American Express Centurion card. No spending limit. No restrictions. The kind of card that most people would never even see in their lifetime, let alone hold in their hands. Daniel walked up to the girl and cleared his throat. She looked up, startled, quickly closing her book. Her eyes were brown and alert, not glazed over like he'd seen with people struggling with addiction. She looked tired, though. Exhausted, actually. Hi, he said simply. Hello, she replied, her voice cautious. She probably thought he was going to lecture her about blocking the sidewalk or tell her to move along. What are you reading? Daniel asked, nodding at the book. She glanced down at it, almost embarrassed. It's about small business management. From the library. I have to return it tomorrow. Why are you reading about business management? He asked, genuinely curious now. The girl hesitated like she wasn't sure if he was making fun of her. Then she said, because I want to understand how things work, how businesses start, how they grow. I figure if I'm going to get out of this situation, I need to learn something valuable. Daniel nodded slowly. What's your name? Lily, she said. Lily, I have a strange question for you, and I need you to take it seriously. She looked at him with those tired but intelligent eyes, waiting. Daniel pulled out the black card and held it up so she could see it. I'm going to give you this credit card. It has no spending limit. You can buy anything you want with it. In 24 hours, I'll meet you back here at this exact spot, and you'll tell me what you did with it. That's all. Lily stared at him like he'd just spoken a foreign language. I'm sorry, what? You heard me correctly. I'm giving you this card. You have 1 day to use it however you want. Tomorrow evening, same time we meet here and you tell me what you did. Is this some kind of prank? Lily asked, looking around for hidden cameras. Are you filming this for social media or something? No cameras, no tricks. No catch, Daniel said flatly. I'm just conducting an experiment and you're the participant. Consider it a test of character if you want. Lily laughed nervously. You're just going to give me your credit card? A complete stranger? Someone who's homeless? Do you know how crazy that sounds? I'm fully aware, Daniel replied. But yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. He pulled out a small piece of paper from his wallet and wrote down the PIN number. Then he held out both the card and the paper to Lily. She didn't take them. She just stared at him, suspicious and confused. Why would you do this? What do you get out of it? Daniel thought about how to answer that. How could he explain that he'd just lost faith in humanity and needed to confirm that everyone was as selfish as he now believed? How could he tell her that he wanted her to prove his cynicism right, so he could justify the walls he'd built around himself? Instead, he said, let's just say I'm curious about human nature, about what people do when they're given something they don't expect, when there are no consequences. But there are consequences, Lily said quickly. If I use your card, that's fraud. That's illegal. I could go to jail. Not if I'm giving you permission, Daniel countered. I'm telling you right now you have my permission to use this card for the next 24 hours. After that, the card gets deactivated anyway. So no, there are no legal consequences. Lily shook her head. This is insane. You don't even know me. Exactly, Daniel said. That's the point. He placed the card and the paper with the pin on top of her book and stepped back. Lily looked down at them like they were a snake that might bite her. What if I just run away with it? She asked. What if I max it out and disappear? Daniel shrugged. That's your choice. I've already accepted that possibility. But something tells me you won't. That sign you made will work for opportunity. Those aren't the words of someone looking for a quick score. Lily picked up the card carefully, holding it between two fingers like it might burn her. The black metal reflected the streetlight above them. She'd never seen a card like this before. She didn't even know they made credit cards in black. I don't understand why you're doing this, she said quietly. You don't need to understand, Daniel replied. You just need to decide what kind of person you are. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. right here. Don't be late. And with that, he turned and walked away. He didn't look back, didn't wait for her response. He just left her sitting there on her cardboard box, holding a piece of plastic that could change her life or destroy it, depending on what she chose to do. As Daniel walked back toward the main street, he felt something unfamiliar. It wasn't quite excitement. Maybe it was anticipation. For the first time all day, he wasn't thinking about the betrayal, the stolen money, the board meeting. He was thinking about what Lily would do with that card. He expected her to withdraw as much cash as possible and disappear. That's what any logical person in her situation would do. She was homeless, probably hungry, definitely desperate. Why wouldn't she take advantage of an opportunity that literally fell into her lap? That's what his CFO had done. That's what people do when they think they can get away with something. But there was a small part of him, a part he tried to ignore, that wondered if maybe he was wrong. Maybe, just maybe, there were still people in the world who would surprise him, people who had nothing but still held on to something valuable, something that couldn't be bought or sold. Daniel pulled out his phone and called his head of security. I need you to monitor account number ending in 7823. Flag every transaction for the next 24 hours and send me real-time notifications. But don't block anything. Let everything go through, no matter the amount. Sir, is everything okay? The security chief asked, concerned. Just do it, Daniel said and hung up. He hailed a taxi and gave the driver his address. As the car merged into traffic, Daniel stared out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Lily was holding his black card and making a decision that would tell him everything he needed to know about whether there was any good left in this world. He didn't know it yet, but this impulsive experiment would change both of their lives forever. Sometimes the tests we create for others end up testing us instead, and sometimes when we're looking for proof that people are bad, the universe sends us evidence that we're wrong. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. Daniel needed to know. He needed to see if his cynicism was justified or if there was still hope for people, for humanity, maybe even for himself. The taxi drove through the rainy streets and Daniel watched the city blur past his window, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Wondering if he was about to be proven right about people being selfish and opportunistic, or if he was about to learn something that would shake the foundation of everything he'd come to believe about human nature. Back at the bus stop, Lily sat frozen, staring at the black card in her shaking hands. Her mind was racing with possibilities, fears, and questions. What had just happened? Was this real? And more importantly, what was she going to do about it? The weight of that small piece of metal felt like it could crush her, because Lily knew that whatever she did in the next 24 hours would define who she really was. Not who she wanted to be, not who she pretended to be, but who she actually was when faced with temptation, desperation, and opportunity all at once. She looked up at the darkening sky and whispered to herself, "What would Mom do?" And in that moment, sitting on a cardboard box on a random street corner, holding more financial power than she'd ever imagined, Lily began to understand that this wasn't just a test of her character. It was a chance to prove something to herself, something she'd been doubting ever since she lost everything and ended up on the streets. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., she would face that stranger again, and she would have to look him in the eye and tell him what she'd done. That thought terrified her more than anything, because whatever choice she made tonight would echo through the rest of her life. Lily sat there for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 15 minutes. The card felt heavy in her hand, heavier than any object that small should feel. She kept looking at it, then looking away, like if she stared at it too long it might disappear or turn out to be fake. Around her the city continued its evening rhythm. People walked past without noticing her. Cars honked in the distance. A street vendor 2 blocks away was shouting about his last few hot dogs of the night. Normal life carrying on like her world hadn't just been turned completely upside down. She thought about just leaving it there, placing the card on the ground and walking away, pretending this weird encounter never happened. But she couldn't. Something about that man's eyes had been so intense, so challenging. He expected her to do something with this. He was testing her, he'd said that clearly. But testing her for what? Lily stood up, her legs shaky. She tucked her library book and her few belongings into her backpack and started walking. She didn't have a plan yet. She just knew she couldn't sit there anymore. The card was in her jacket pocket, and she kept touching it every few steps to make sure it was real. That this wasn't some kind of dream brought on by hunger and exhaustion. Her stomach growled loudly. When was the last time she'd eaten? Yesterday morning she'd had half a breakfast sandwich that someone left at the bus stop. Before that she couldn't remember. Maybe 2 days ago at the community kitchen? Time blurred together when you were living on the streets. She walked until she found a small diner. Not one of those trendy places with fancy coffee and $20 sandwiches. Just a regular old diner with cracked vinyl seats and a flickering neon sign that said Betty's. She'd walked past this place 100 times but never went in. Why would she? She had maybe $3.65 to her name. But now she had this card. Lily pushed open the door. A bell jingled above her head. The place smelled like coffee and grilled onions. There were only a few customers, mostly older folks having an early dinner. A waitress with gray hair and kind eyes looked up from behind the counter. "Sit anywhere, honey," the waitress said with a warm smile. Lily slid into a booth near the back, away from the windows. She didn't want people from the street to see her in here. The menu was sticky and laminated, with pictures of food that made her stomach ache with hunger. Everything looked amazing. Burgers, fries, milkshakes, pie, soup, sandwiches. When you haven't eaten properly in days, even a simple menu looks like something from a 5-star restaurant. The waitress came over with a glass of water. "What can I get you, sweetie?" Lily's hands were shaking as she held the menu. "Can I just have, the soup and sandwich combo?" "Sure thing. Tomato soup, okay? And the sandwich is turkey and cheese." "That's perfect. Thank you." The waitress started to walk away, then turned back. She'd noticed Lily's worn clothes, her too thin face, the backpack that contained everything she owned. But she didn't say anything mean. She just smiled and said, "You want some extra bread with that?" "On the house?" Lily felt tears sting her eyes. "That would be really nice. Thank you." When the food came, Lily ate slowly, trying to make it last. The soup was hot and rich. The sandwich was simple but tasted better than anything she could remember. The waitress, whose name tag said Dorothy, had indeed brought extra bread plus an extra packet of crackers. The bill came to $12.47. Lily pulled out the black card with trembling hands. This was it. The first test. Was the card even real? Would it work? Or would she get arrested right here in this diner for trying to use a stolen credit card? She walked up to the counter where Dorothy was wiping down the coffee machine. All set? Dorothy asked cheerfully. Yes, thank you. It was really good. Lily handed her the card. Dorothy took it and her eyes widened slightly. She'd been a waitress for 30 years and had seen plenty of credit cards, but never one like this. Pure black metal, heavy with a simple design. She knew what it was, the kind of card that billionaires carried. She looked at Lily, then at the card, then back at Lily. For a moment, Lily was sure she was going to call the police. But Dorothy just swiped the card and handed it back. Approved, she said quietly. Then she leaned in and whispered, Whatever's going on in your life, honey, I hope things get better for you. Lily's eyes filled with tears again. Thank you. Really, thank you. She left a $10 tip on the table. It was probably more than the meal cost, but Dorothy had been kind to her. That mattered. Outside the diner, Lily stood on the sidewalk and took a deep breath. The card had worked. This was real. She had access to more money than she could even imagine. Her brother's face flashed in her mind. Her little brother, staying with their aunt across town, suffering from asthma without proper medication because they couldn't afford it. She could help him now. She could buy his medicine, maybe even get him a better inhaler. But something stopped her. That man, Daniel, he was testing her character, he'd said. If she spent all the money on herself and her family, what would that prove? That she was just another person taking advantage of an opportunity? Is that who she wanted to be? Lily walked for another hour, thinking. The city lights were coming on now, and the streets were getting busier with the Friday night crowd. She passed expensive restaurants where people were paying $50 for a steak, laughing and drinking wine like money meant nothing. She passed stores with window displays full of things nobody really needed, but everyone seemed to want. And then she passed the children's hospital. She'd walked by it before. Sometimes she'd sit on a bench across the street and watch the parents coming and going, carrying balloons and stuffed animals, their faces lined with worry. She'd always felt grateful that at least she didn't have a sick child to worry about, that at least her problems were just her own. She stood there for a long moment staring at the hospital entrance. An idea was forming in her mind. A crazy idea. Maybe a stupid idea. But it felt right in a way that nothing else had felt in a long time. Lily walked into the hospital lobby. It was bright and clean, with colorful murals on the walls meant to cheer up sick children. A volunteer at the information desk looked up at her. "Can I help you?" the volunteer asked, her tone professional but slightly wary. Lily knew she didn't look like she belonged here. "I'd like to make a donation," Lily said, trying to sound confident, "to help with medical bills for families who can't afford treatment." The volunteer's expression changed completely. Oh, that's wonderful. Let me get someone from our fundraising office. Just one moment." 5 minutes later, Lily was sitting in an office with a woman named Patricia who worked in hospital administration. Patricia had kind eyes but looked exhausted, like she'd been working too many hours. "We always appreciate donations," Patricia was saying. "Every little bit helps. Even $20 or $50 can make a difference for our families." "I'd like to donate $5,000, Lily said quietly. Patricia's pen froze mid-air. She looked up at Lily, really looked at her this time, taking in the worn clothes and weathered backpack. "I'm sorry, did you say 5,000? "Yes, if that's okay. I have a credit card." Patricia's professional mask slipped a bit. That's incredibly generous. May I ask, are you sure? That's a significant amount." Lily pulled out the black card and placed it on the desk. "I'm sure. I want it to go to families who are about to give up because they can't pay, the ones who are being told their children can't get treatment because of money. Can you do that?" Patricia stared at the card, then at Lily. 100 questions were probably running through her mind, but she was too professional to ask them. Instead, she said, "We can absolutely do that. We have several families right now facing exactly that situation. Your donation would be life-changing." The transaction took a few minutes. Patricia kept glancing at Lily like she was trying to solve a puzzle. When it was done, she printed out a receipt and handed it to Lily along with the card. "I don't know your story," Patricia said softly, "but what you just did is going to save lives. Real lives, children who might not have gotten treatment otherwise. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. Lily felt something break open inside her chest. A good breaking, like a dam releasing pressure. My mom died because we couldn't afford her treatment, she heard herself saying. So if this helps even one family avoid that, then it means something. She left the hospital feeling lighter somehow, despite having just spent $5,000 that wasn't even hers. The weight of the card in her pocket felt different now. Less like a burden and more like a responsibility. But she wasn't done. Her next stop was the homeless shelter where she usually stayed. It was run by a man named Father Mike, though he always insisted people just call him Mike. He was in his 60s, with white hair and a laugh that made you feel like everything might actually be okay. Mike was in the kitchen when Lily found him, stirring a huge pot of soup for dinner service. Lily, good to see you. You staying tonight? Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something, Lily said. The meal program here. How much would it cost to fund it for a month? Mike wiped his hands on his apron and laughed. Fund it? Lily, are you feeling all right? Did you hit your head? I'm serious. If someone wanted to donate enough to cover meals for everyone here for a month, how much would that be? Mike's smile faded as he realized she wasn't joking. Well, we serve about 200 people a day. Food costs, I'd say roughly $3,000 would cover a month, maybe a bit more. But Lily, why are you asking? She pulled out the card. Because I want to donate that. $3,000 today. Mike actually stepped backwards. Lily, where did you get a card like that? You're not in trouble, are you? You didn't steal. I didn't steal anything, Lily said firmly. Someone gave it to me. For 24 hours. To test what I'd do with it. And this is what I want to do. I want people to have hot meals. People like me who have nothing, to at least have food they don't have to worry about. Mike was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. You have access to what I'm guessing is a lot of money, and you want to spend it feeding homeless people? Yes, not on yourself. New clothes, a hotel room, a fresh start somewhere? This is more important, Lily said simply. They processed the donation in Mike's small office. $3,000 to the shelter's meal program. When it was done, Mike looked at her with something like awe. I've been running this shelter for 20 years, he said. I've seen a lot of people come through those doors. But I've never seen anything like this. You have a good heart, Lily. Don't let this world take that from you. Lily left the shelter as the sun was starting to set. She'd now spent $8,000. The card still worked. Nobody had called the police. Nobody had stopped her. She had one more place to go. The community center in her old neighborhood was struggling. She knew because she'd volunteered there before everything fell apart in her life. They ran after-school programs for kids whose parents worked late. Art classes, homework help, a safe place to be instead of on the streets. But the last time she'd passed by, there was a sign saying they might have to close due to lack of funding. She found the director, a woman named Rita, locking up for the evening. Rita.
Do you remember me?
I used to volunteer here. Rita squinted in the dimming light, then smiled.
Lily, of course.
How are you, honey? I heard you'd been going through some hard times. I'm okay. Listen, I know the center is struggling. What would it take to keep it open? For the after-school program? Rita sighed. About $2,000 would cover the next 3 months and give us time to fundraise properly. But honestly, I don't know if we're going to make it. I've applied for every grant, reached out to every donor. People just don't see the value in these programs until they're gone. I see the value, Lily said, and I want to donate the $2,000. Right now? Rita laughed, assuming it was a joke. Then she saw Lily's face and the laughter died. Lily, you can't be serious. No offense, but I'm homeless, I know, Lily finished. But I have access to something for a short time. And I want to use it to help. Please, let me do this. The donation was processed on Rita's old laptop in the center's cramped office. $2,000 to save a program that helped 50 kids every day. When it was done, Rita hugged Lily so tight she could barely breathe. Those kids, Rita whispered. You just saved something precious for those kids. They're going to have a safe place to go, because of you. Walking away from the community center, Lily checked her phone. It was almost 9 p.m. She'd spent $10,000 in a few hours. Money that could have changed her entire life. She could have gotten an apartment, bought new clothes, filled her stomach for months. Instead, she'd given it away to strangers. And somehow, for the first time in 6 months, she felt rich. She found a quiet spot in a park and sat on a bench. She pulled out a small notebook from her backpack and wrote down every single transaction. The diner, the hospital, the shelter, the community center. Every dollar accounted for, because that money wasn't hers. It belonged to a man named Daniel who was testing her character. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., she'd have to face him. She'd have to look him in the eye and explain what she'd done. Part of her was terrified. What if he was angry? What if he expected her to spend it on herself and she'd failed his test? But another part of her, a deeper part, knew she'd done the right thing. Her mother had always said that wealth isn't what you keep, it's what you give. That character is built in the small moments when nobody's watching, when you have a choice between easy and right. Lily had made her choice. Now she just had to live with it and hope that somehow it had been enough. Lily didn't sleep that night. She tried lying on the thin mattress at the shelter, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that black card. She kept replaying her decisions, questioning everything. Had she done the right thing? Or had she just thrown away the one opportunity that might have changed her life? At 3 a.m, she gave up on sleep. She got dressed quietly, trying not to wake the other women in the room, and slipped out into the night. The city was different at this hour. Quieter, emptier, almost peaceful. Street cleaners hummed in the distance. A few taxis cruised by looking for late-night passengers. Lily walked with no destination in mind, just needing to move, to think. She ended up at a 24-hour convenience store. The clerk behind the counter looked half asleep, barely glancing at her as she walked to the back where they had a small section with a computer for public use. It cost $5 an hour. She paid with the few coins she had left in her pocket. The computer was old and slow, but it worked. Lily opened a document and started typing. She created a detailed spreadsheet of every single transaction from the previous day, the time, the place, the exact amount, and most importantly, the reason. Next to each entry, she wrote down phone numbers and contact information for the hospital, the shelter, and the community center. Everything documented, everything traceable, everything transparent. She wasn't trying to hide anything. She wanted Daniel to know exactly where his money went and why. If he wanted to verify any of it, he could. If he wanted to call these places and confirm, he had all the information right there. But Lily did something else too. Something she'd been thinking about for months but never had the resources to act on. She opened a fresh document and started writing. A business proposal. A real one, with research and numbers and a genuine plan. The idea had been growing in her mind ever since she ended up on the streets. She'd met so many people in her situation. Good people, smart people, people who wanted to work but couldn't get hired because they didn't have an address or clean clothes for an interview, or a way to explain the gap in their resume. People who had skills and dreams but no opportunity to use them. Her proposal was simple but detailed. A job training program that partnered with local businesses. The program would provide homeless individuals with training, interview preparation, and most importantly, dignity. It would match them with companies willing to give them a real chance, not charity, not handouts. Real jobs with real pay cases and real futures. Lily had researched this before, back when she had access to the library computers regularly. She knew the statistics. She knew which programs worked and which didn't. She knew the cost breakdown, the potential challenges, the ways to measure success. She'd spent hours planning this in her head, lying awake in shelters, scribbling notes in the margins of newspapers. Now at 3:30 in a fluorescent-lit convenience store, she typed it all out. 20 pages, charts, references, contact information for potential business partners she'd researched. A 3-year implementation plan. Budget projections. When she finished, the sun was starting to rise. She printed everything out using the last of her money. 50 copies of her business proposal. The spreadsheet of yesterday's expenses. All of it organized in a neat stack. The clerk looked at her curiously as she collected the pages. "Big presentation?" he asked. "Something like that," Lily said, managing a tired smile. She walked to a coffee shop that opened early and sat at a table outside, even though she couldn't afford to buy anything. The morning crowd started to flow past her. People in business suits rushing to offices, parents walking kids to school, delivery trucks making their rounds. Normal life happening all around her. Lily looked at the papers in her hands. Her entire future might depend on what happened at 6 p.m. today. She'd spent $10,000 of someone else's money, money she could have used to transform her own life. Instead, she'd given it away. And now she had to explain why to a man who'd probably expected her to do exactly the opposite. The day crawled by. Lily tried to stay busy. She returned her library book and checked out a new one. She helped serve lunch at the shelter, washing dishes and wiping down tables. She walked through the city, memorizing the streets, preparing herself mentally for the conversation to come. Around 4 p.m., doubt started creeping in heavy and dark. What if Daniel was angry? What if he'd expected her to spend the money on herself, to prove that everyone is selfish when given the chance? What if her choice to help others had actually failed his test? Worse, what if he didn't show up at all? What if this had all been some elaborate prank and she'd never see him again? She'd be left with nothing but a memory of 24 hours when she'd held unlimited wealth in her hands and given it away. By 5:30, Lily was standing near the bus stop where they'd first met. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She clutched the papers to her chest like a shield. The black card was in her pocket along with the PIN number ready to return. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. 5:40, 5:50, 5:55. What if he didn't come? What if— You're early, Lily spun around. Daniel was standing a few feet away, wearing a different suit but the same unreadable expression. He looked tired, like maybe he hadn't slept much either. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss you, Lily said, her voice shaking slightly. Daniel walked closer and gestured to a nearby bench. Should we sit? They sat down, leaving a careful distance between them. For a moment neither spoke. Lily could hear her own breathing loud in her ears. Daniel was studying her face like he was trying to read something written there. So, he said finally, what did you do with my credit card? Lily pulled out the card and the PIN paper first, holding them out to him. Here, I should give these back first. Daniel took them but didn't look at them. He kept his eyes on her. That's not what I asked. I know, Lily said. She took a deep breath and pulled out her spreadsheet. I spent $10,205. I documented everything. Every transaction, every location, every reason. It's all here. She handed him the papers. Daniel took them and started reading. His face remained expressionless, but Lily watched his eyes moving across the page. She saw them stop at the hospital donation, move down to the shelter, continue to the community center. The silence stretched out so long that Lily wanted to scream. Finally, Daniel looked up at her. You had access to unlimited funds, he said slowly. You could have withdrawn hundreds of thousands in cash. You could have disappeared, started over somewhere new. Instead, you spent $10,000 on strangers? Yes, Lily whispered. Why? It was such a simple question. But Lily felt like everything depended on her answer. She thought about lying, about giving him whatever answer she thought he wanted to hear. But she'd come this far with the truth. Why stop now? Because it wasn't my money, she said quietly. And even if it was, I couldn't enjoy it knowing other people were suffering when I could help them. My mom died because we couldn't afford her cancer treatment. I watched her fade away while doctors told us there were procedures that could save her, if only we had the money. I spent 6 months watching her die slowly, knowing that somewhere people were spending more on a single dinner than what could have saved her life. Lily's voice cracked, but she kept going. So when I saw that hospital, when I thought about families being told their kids couldn't get treatment because of money, I couldn't walk away. I just couldn't. And the shelter, they feed people like me every day. People who have nothing, and that community center keeps kids off the streets, gives them hope. How could I spend that money on myself when it could do so much more good somewhere else? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, his phone rang. He looked at the screen and his eyebrows rose slightly. Excuse me, he said to Lily. I need to take this. He answered the call and put it on speaker. A woman's voice came through, thick with emotion. Mr. Chen, this is Patricia from Children's Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about your donation yesterday. I wanted you to know that your $5,000 saved 3 children's lives. We were about to turn away patients because we'd exhausted our emergency fund. Your donation covered their treatment. One of them was a little girl with leukemia. She's 7 years old. Because of you, she's getting the chemotherapy she needs. I wanted you to thank you. From the bottom of my heart. Daniel's expression changed. Just slightly, but Lily saw it. A crack in the wall. Thank you for calling, he said quietly and ended the call. Before either of them could speak, his phone rang again. Then again, the shelter director called, thanking him for the meal program funding that would feed 200 people for a month. The community center director called, crying with gratitude, explaining that 50 kids would have a safe place to go after school because of his generosity. With each call, Daniel's face changed a little more. The hard, cynical mask he'd been wearing was crumbling. By the time the last call ended, he was staring at his phone like he'd never seen it before. He looked at Lily, and for the first time she saw emotion in his eyes. Real, raw emotion. "I gave you that card expecting you to prove me right," he said, his voice rough. "I wanted you to be selfish. I wanted you to take advantage, to prove that everyone is just waiting for their chance to grab what they can. 'Cause that's what I'd come to believe about people." "Why did you believe that?" Lily asked softly. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "Because the day before I met you, I discovered that my chief financial officer had been stealing from my company for years. Millions of dollars gone. He was someone I trusted completely. Someone who had everything, a huge salary, stock options, respect, and he still stole from me. So I started thinking, if someone who has so much can be that greedy, what would someone who has nothing do?" "You wanted me to prove that everyone's bad," Lily said, understanding now. "Yes," Daniel admitted. "And instead you proved the exact opposite. You had nothing. You were homeless, hungry, desperate, and you still chose to help others. You spent my money on people you'd never met, on causes that wouldn't benefit you at all." He stood up suddenly and started pacing. "Do you know what I did yesterday after I gave you that card? I went home to my penthouse apartment. $40 million worth of luxury, floor-to-ceiling windows, imported furniture, a wine collection worth more than most people make in a year. And I sat there alone drinking expensive scotch, waiting for the notifications of your transactions to come through." Daniel stopped and looked at her. "I was so sure you'd max out the card. I'd already prepared myself for it. Prepared the lecture I'd give you about human nature when we met today. But then the notifications started coming in. The hospital, the shelter, the community center, and I realized something." "What?" Lily asked, her heart racing. "That I'd become exactly what I hated," Daniel said quietly. "I'd let one person's betrayal turn me into someone who assumed the worst about everyone. Someone who tested people's character while my own character was disappearing. You know what's really crazy? I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and I use it mostly to make more money. But you with nothing used what you had to make the world better." He sat back down on the bench, closer to her this time. "I want to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. That business proposal in your stack of papers, what is it?" Lily had almost forgotten about it. She pulled out the proposal and handed it to him, her hands shaking. "It's just an idea I've had. A job training program for homeless people, pairing them with businesses willing to give them real opportunities. Not charity, real jobs, real futures." Daniel started reading. Lily watched him flip through pages, his eyes scanning her charts, her research, her implementation plans. The silence felt like it lasted forever. Finally, he looked up at her. "This is good. Really good. Professional level good. Where did you learn to write a proposal like this?" "I was in college," Lily said quietly, "studying business administration. I had a full scholarship. But when my mom got sick, I had to drop out to take care of her. After she died, I couldn't go back. Lost the scholarship, lost my part-time job, lost my apartment. Everything just fell apart." Daniel nodded slowly, like pieces of a puzzle were clicking into place in his mind. Then he did something that shocked Lily completely. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Robert, I need you to draft an employment contract immediately. Director of Community Impact. Starting salary $95,000, full benefits, signing bonus $20,000. Yes, I'm serious. I'll send you the details within the hour." He ended the call and turned to Lily, who was staring at him with her mouth open. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "I'm hiring you," Daniel said simply. "My company needs someone to run our community programs. Someone who actually understands what it means to need help. Someone who has integrity even when no one's watching." "That's you." Lily couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. "But I don't have a degree," she finally managed to say. "I didn't finish college." "Then we'll fix that," Daniel said. "The company will sponsor your education while you work. You can finish your degree, learn more about what you need to know. But Lily, you already have something that can't be taught. You have character. You have vision. And most importantly, you give a damn about people." Tears were streaming down Lily's face now. "I don't understand. Why would you do this?" Daniel looked at her with something that might have been respect. Maybe even admiration. Because you did something incredible yesterday. You changed my mind about humanity. You reminded me that good people still exist. And honestly, I think you're exactly the kind of person who could change a lot of lives, starting with your own. He stood and extended his hand to her. So what do you say? Do you want to take this opportunity? Do you want to turn your proposal into reality? Lily looked at his hand. 24 hours ago, she'd been sitting on a cardboard box reading a library book, hoping for any chance at something better. Now she was being offered not just a job, but a career, a purpose, a future. She thought about her mom, about the values she'd tried to instill, about choosing character over convenience, about the kind of person she wanted to be. Lily stood up and took Daniel's hand. Yes, she said, her voice stronger than it had been all day. Yes, I want that. And I promise you won't regret this. Daniel smiled, a real smile this time. I already know I won't. You've already proven who you are. Now let's see what you can do when you actually have resources to work with. As they walked away from that bus stop together, Lily realized that the test hadn't just been about what she'd do with the money. It had been about what kind of person she was when it mattered most. And somehow, without even trying, she'd passed. The next 3 months felt like a dream Lily kept expecting to wake up from. Daniel hadn't been joking. 2 days after their meeting at the bus stop, she received an official employment contract. 3 days after that, she moved into a small but clean apartment that the company helped her secure. For the first time in almost a year, she had her own bed, her own bathroom, her own front door with a lock and key. But the transition wasn't as smooth as fairy tales made it seem. The first morning she woke up in her apartment, Lily panicked. She shot up in bed, disoriented, thinking she'd overslept at the shelter and would lose her spot. It took her several minutes to remember where she was, to understand that this was real, that she actually lived here now. Her first day at work was terrifying. Daniel's company occupied 15 floors of a downtown skyscraper. Everyone wore expensive clothes and carried tablets and talked about metrics and quarterly projections. Lily showed up in the one decent outfit she'd managed to buy at a thrift store, her hands sweating, convinced that someone would realize she didn't belong there and kick her out. Daniel met her in the lobby personally. He was wearing another one of his sharp suits, but his expression was warmer than it had been that first day. Ready? He asked honestly. I'm terrified, Lily admitted. He smiled slightly. Good. People who aren't nervous on their first day usually don't care enough. Come on, I'll show you around. He introduced her to what felt like 100 people. Department heads, team leaders, assistants, colleagues. Most of them smiled politely and shook her hand, but Lily could see the questions in their eyes. Who was this young woman with no apparent background? Why had the CEO personally hired her? What made her qualified for such a high-level position? One person in particular made her nervousness worse. A woman named Victoria, the vice president of operations, looked Lily up and down with barely concealed skepticism. So you're the new director of community impact, Victoria said, her tone making it clear she didn't think much of the title or the person holding it. I wasn't aware we were creating that position. It's a new initiative, Daniel said smoothly. Lily will be developing programs that connect our company with communities that need support. How nice, Victoria said in a way that didn't sound nice at all. And what's your background in corporate community relations? Lily felt her face flush. I don't have traditional experience in... She has real-world experience, Daniel interrupted firmly. She understands the communities we'll be serving better than anyone I could hire from a fancy business school. That's what matters. Victoria's smile was thin. Of course. Welcome aboard, Lily. As Victoria walked away, Lily felt her confidence crumbling. She thinks I don't belong here, she whispered to Daniel. She thinks lots of things, most of them wrong, Daniel replied. Don't worry about Victoria. Worry about the work. That's what will speak for itself. He led her to an office, not a cubicle, an actual office with walls and a door and a window that overlooked the city. Lily stood in the doorway, unable to move. This is mine, she asked. It's yours. Computer, phone, supplies, everything you need. My office is 3 floors up if you need anything. But Lily, Daniel paused, making sure she was looking at him. I'm not going to hold your hand through this. I believe in what you can do, but you have to actually do it. Show everyone here, especially the doubters, that you earned this position. Lily nodded, trying to look more confident than she felt. I will, I promise. The first few weeks were the hardest of Lily's life. She worked 12, sometimes 14-hour days. She studied everything she could about corporate community programs, grant writing, nonprofit partnerships, and social impact metrics. She reached out to every organization she could think of, rebuilding connections she'd made during her time on the streets. But more than the work itself, it was the small things that challenged her. Things most people took for granted, using the fancy coffee machine in the break room without looking foolish, knowing which fork to use at a business lunch, understanding the unspoken rules of office culture. Lily felt like she was learning a foreign language while everyone around her spoke it fluently. There were moments of kindness, though. Her assistant, a young man named Kevin, patiently explained office systems to her without making her feel stupid. The security guard, Tom, remembered her name after the first day and always greeted her with a warm smile. And Daniel, true to his word about not holding her hand, still checked in occasionally to see how she was doing. "You look exhausted," he said one evening, finding her still at her desk at 8 p.m. "I'm fine," Lily said, though she was anything but. She'd been working on a proposal for the job training program, and it wasn't coming together the way she'd hoped. Daniel pulled up a chair. "What's wrong?" "I can't figure out how to get businesses to commit to the program," Lily admitted. "I've called 30 companies. Most won't even take my meeting. The ones who do listen politely and then say no, they don't want to take a chance on hiring people with unstable backgrounds. And what have you been offering them? The chance to make a difference, to help people who really need it." Daniel leaned back. "That's your problem. You're appealing to their conscience. Most businesses don't make decisions based on conscience. They make them based on value. What value does your program bring to them?" Lily frowned. "I don't understand." "Right now, you're asking them to do you a favor. Instead, show them how this program benefits them. Lower turnover rates because employees feel invested in meaningful work, tax incentives for hiring from disadvantaged backgrounds, positive publicity and community goodwill, loyal employees who remember that someone gave them a chance. Stop selling charity, start selling mutual benefit." It was like a light bulb went on in Lily's head. She'd been approaching this all wrong. She spent the next week completely reworking her pitch, focusing on what businesses would gain, not just what they'd be giving. The difference was immediate. Companies started taking meetings. Some even expressed genuine interest. Her first real success came from an unexpected place. A restaurant chain owner named Mr. Hashmi agreed to meet with her. He listened to her pitch, asked tough questions, and finally nodded. "I came to this country with nothing," he said. "Worked in kitchens for years before I could open my first restaurant. I know what it's like when nobody will give you a chance. I'll partner with your program. Start small, maybe 5 positions across my restaurants. But they have to be serious about working,